Listen closely, because what I'm about to say will make most men uncomfortable, but it's the truth you've been avoiding. Here it is. Most men completely misunderstand women. You think chasing, texting constantly, showing attention, or trying to win her over is the way to make a woman feel connected to you. You're wrong. Dead wrong. And the reason is simple. Women feel depth through silence, not noise. Now, before you roll your eyes, let me explain. I'm not talking about ignoring her to play games. I'm not talking about being cold or manipulative. I'm talking about understanding something every man should know, but almost none do. The longer you stay silent, the more a woman feels you. This isn't a trick. It isn't manipulation. It's pure psychology rooted in human behavior and stoic principles of restraint and presence. Here's the reality most men refuse to face. In a world where everyone is desperate for attention, being constantly available is the quickest way to make yourself invisible. Think about it. If a woman can reach you anytime, if she sees your reactions immediately, and if you respond to everything she sends, what happens? She stops feeling you. You become ordinary, predictable, safe. And women, deep down, are wired to feel emotional intensity, mystery, and presence, not just convenience. Here's where the controversy comes in. Most men are terrified of silence. They think that if they stop talking, stop texting, stop proving their worth constantly, they'll lose her. That's exactly what women expect men to think. But the truth is the opposite. Silence is not absence. Silence is presence in another form. It's confidence. It's restraint. It's showing that your life, your energy, and your attention are valuable. And here's the kicker. Women feel this deeply, even if they don't say it. Let me break it down for you in a way you can't ignore. Women experience connection through emotion and presence, not words. Every time you flood her phone with messages, every time you chase her, you're giving her noise, not depth. And noise is easily replaced. Silence, however, is rare. Silence makes her pay attention without you saying a single word. Silence forces her to notice your energy, your aura, your value. It's uncomfortable for her because she's used to men being predictable, eager, and emotionally available on demand. But it's the kind of discomfort that sparks desire. Here's a truth that most men refuse to admit. Women are not shallow, but they are wired to feel what words can't convey. You can't make her feel with explanations, promises, or logic. You make her feel through the tension, the restraint, the pause, the quiet space where she begins to sense your confidence, your independence, and your control. And this is where most men fail. They fill silence with meaningless words, trying to keep attention, trying to show her they care, when in reality, they're erasing every chance of her feeling something real. This is where stoicism comes in. One of the most powerful tools a man can use is the ability to remain unshaken, composed, and silent when others are panicking. Stoicism teaches restraint, presence, and emotional control. And when applied to relationships, it becomes almost magical. You see, a woman doesn't just want a man who is kind or interesting. She wants a man who feels unshakable, even in silence. She feels strength when you don't react impulsively. She feels intrigue when your energy is steady, calm, and unwavering. And that feeling, that's what keeps her attention, and more importantly, her emotions. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. So, you're saying I should ignore her? No, not ignore. Understand the difference. Ignoring is reactive. Silence is proactive. Ignoring is trying to punish or manipulate. Silence is control. Silence is mastery over yourself, over your time, and over your energy. It's saying, without words, I am enough. My presence is enough. I don't need to chase validation. And when a woman senses that, she feels something powerful, something words can't create. Here's the harsh reality many men avoid. If you are always available, always chasing, always explaining, you are teaching her that you have no boundaries, no life outside of her attention, no self-worth independent of her validation. And when that happens, no amount of charm, compliments, or gestures will make her feel the depth of you. You'll be just another man in a sea of men she barely notices. But if you embrace silence strategically, if you master the art of presence without constant words, she begins to feel you at a level that goes beyond attraction. It becomes curiosity, fascination, and eventually emotional attachment. So here's my challenge to you right now. Stop being predictable. Stop filling the void with words that don't matter. Learn the power of silent presence. It will feel strange at first, maybe even scary. She might test you, poke at your patience, or doubt your interest. That's normal. That's the test. The longer you maintain calm, composed silence, the deeper she begins to feel your energy. And that feeling is rare, unforgettable, and powerful. In this video, we're going to break down exactly how silence works in female psychology, why it triggers deep emotional responses, and how you, as a man, can use it wisely without being manipulative or cold. You're about to discover a truth most men will never admit, and most women will never say out loud. But once you understand it, your perspective on relationships, attraction, and connection will change forever. Because here's the ultimate controversial truth to start this conversation. Most men lose women, not because they don't care enough, but because they talk too much. They chase too hard. They reveal too much of themselves too soon. The longer you learn to stay silent, the deeper she begins to feel the real you, the version of yourself most men never even reach. And that is the kind of connection that lasts. Most men think that communication is about talking more, explaining more, or constantly proving they care. They believe that the louder their voice, the stronger their presence. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Women feel emotional depth not from words, but from controlled absence. Silence is not emptiness. It's a signal of confidence, self-respect, and independence. When you don't react instantly, when you don't fill every space with noise, something powerful happens. She starts to notice you, not just your words. Think about it this way. When a man disappears from constant contact, he suddenly becomes unpredictable. And unpredictability triggers curiosity. Women are naturally drawn to what they cannot immediately define. It's not about playing games. It's about allowing your presence to be felt without forcing it. When you speak less and move through life with composed silence, you create a space where she begins to emotionally track your energy. She starts to notice your boundaries, your focus, and your life outside of her attention. That creates tension. And tension is the birthplace of strong emotional feelings. Let's make it concrete. Imagine you're texting a woman you like. She sends you a message late at night. Most men feel the instant urge to reply, often pouring in explanations, jokes, or flattery. But instead of responding immediately, you wait a few hours, or even until the next day. During that time, you're not ignoring her to punish. You're living your life, handling your priorities, showing that your time and attention are valuable. She notices this. Even if she doesn't say it, her mind registers the shift. Suddenly, you are no longer just another guy reacting to her every move. You are the man who exists with a life beyond her pull. And that subtle shift creates a deep emotional resonance. Women often experience connection and feelings rather than logic. If every response you give is instant, predictable, and eager, she doesn't have to feel anything about you. She already knows everything. But when you create intentional space, she starts to imagine, reflect, and subconsciously ask herself about your thoughts, your priorities, and your presence. She begins to feel your energy even when you're silent. That feeling is rare. It's what makes a woman pay attention in a way that goes beyond surface attraction. Another reason silence works is that it communicates control. Most men are emotionally reactive, and women notice this immediately. If you reply to everything instantly, if your mood swings with every message or interaction, it tells her one thing. You are governed by external validation. That is not attractive. But if you maintain calm, composed, and measured responses, you convey stability. Women are wired to feel drawn to men who have control over their own emotions and priorities. Silence in this context becomes a powerful signal. I am not defined by anyone's attention. I define my own presence. Here's a scene you might recognize. You're on a date and she asks personal questions or tries to probe your feelings. The typical response from most men is to overshare, to explain, to justify themselves. But the man who understands silence responds differently. He listens, absorbs, and answers thoughtfully, not eagerly. He allows pauses in conversation, giving space for reflection. That pause is heavy with meaning. It's not emptiness, it's weight. She feels it. That silence communicates confidence, depth, and self-possession. And in that feeling, she begins to connect to the real you beyond words. This approach also teaches a critical lesson that most men overlook. Women are deeply intuitive. They read energy, attitude, and consistency far more than words. If you're constantly reacting, explaining, or chasing, she senses it. She feels the lack of stability and respect for your own time. But when you hold your ground, live by your principles, and embrace calm silence, she experiences your energy on an emotional level. She starts to notice how your presence or absence shapes her own feelings. That is the essence of attraction. Not what you say, but what you embody. Now, here's the real challenge for men. Practicing silence is uncomfortable. You might feel fear, anxiety, or doubt. You might worry she will lose interest or misinterpret your calm. That's natural. Most men have never trained themselves to value silence, to measure their responses, and to move with emotional control. But the discomfort is precisely where transformation happens. When you resist the urge to fill every void with words, you grow in self-discipline, presence, and inner strength. And she feels that. In essence, silence is not about manipulation. It's about mastery. Mastery of self, mastery of energy, and mastery of presence. When you embrace this principle, women begin to feel you in ways that go beyond the surface. They notice your boundaries, your focus, and your self-respect. They feel the tension of your absence, which paradoxically makes your presence more meaningful. They begin to track your energy, imagine your priorities, and develop feelings that no amount of words can replicate. This is why the longer you stay silent in the right way, the deeper a woman begins to feel you. Not because she is confused or tricked, but because she senses a man who is grounded, independent, and confident. That feeling cannot be forced. It grows naturally from your restraint and presence. And that is the kind of depth most men will never reach, because most men are too afraid to be still, to pause, and to let silence do the work that words cannot. Here's something most men refuse to admit. The reason you're not creating real emotional impact with women isn't because you're uninteresting or not attractive. It's because you don't understand the power of restraint. You've been conditioned to think that Being reactive, constantly available, or proving your worth is the way to win her attention. That's what society, movies, and social media have drilled into you. But that approach doesn't create depth. It creates familiarity. And familiarity is invisible. Most men live their lives chasing validation. They respond immediately to messages. They over-explain their feelings. They over-justify every action. You might even see yourself in this. You've been on dates where you said too much because you felt nervous or wanted approval. You've texted endlessly because you didn't want to seem uninterested. You've tried to impress, charm, and prove that you are the one. And somewhere along the way, you realized it didn't work. The connection didn't grow deeper. She didn't feel more attached. Instead, it felt ordinary, flat, and sometimes even exhausting. That's because emotion isn't built by words alone. It's built by energy, presence, and the subtle tension created by controlled absence. Women notice when a man has boundaries, when he values his time, when he is fully present with his own life. And most men don't operate this way. Most men are reactive, easily swayed by attention, and desperate to be liked. When you're constantly available, you're giving her nothing to feel because she already knows everything about your reactions, your availability, and your attention. Think about your own life for a second. You probably know someone, maybe a man you've seen around, who doesn't over-explain himself, who isn't constantly chasing, yet somehow draws attention effortlessly. You notice the calm in his presence. You feel the subtle tension when he doesn't reply immediately or when he isn't always at everyone's disposal. There's a magnetism there that words can't create. That's the same principle at work. When a man learns to use silence effectively with women, the challenge for men is psychological. Silence feels risky. It triggers fear. You worry she might lose interest, that she might think you're not invested, or that someone else might take your place. That's natural. Most men have been conditioned to equate attention with value. You measure your worth by responses, likes, or immediate reactions. And when you stop chasing, stop reacting, and stop filling every space with noise, it feels unnatural, almost wrong. But here's the truth. This discomfort is the signal that you're doing it right. Silence also shifts the power balance, but in a healthy way. When a man constantly reacts, he gives his energy away, allowing external circumstances to define his emotions. But when a man embraces restraint, he takes back control. He defines his own energy, his own presence, and his own priorities. Women pick up on this instinctively. They feel the difference between a man who is reactive and one who is steady. They feel the energy of a man who moves through life with self-possession. And that feeling creates curiosity, respect, and deeper emotional connection. You don't need to manipulate, play games, or act cold. You just need to be deliberate with your presence. That means pausing before responding, focusing on your own priorities, and not giving away your energy for validation. Most men can relate to the anxiety of constantly checking their phone, refreshing conversations, and trying to be available enough. That behavior feels normal because it's what most men do, but it's exactly what kills depth and emotional connection. Another point men often overlook is that silence communicates consistency. Women are wired to feel security and energy that doesn't fluctuate with every text, every conversation, or every emotional reaction. They notice the calm, composed man, not because he's unfeeling, but because he isn't defined by every stimulus. That feeling of emotional stability is rare. It makes you stand out without you having to say a word. At the end of the day, the reason men fail with women is simple. You give too much too soon and too easily. You chase reactions instead of cultivating presence. You fill silence with noise instead of letting your energy speak. And when you embrace silence, when you learn to pause, to hold back, and to create space, everything changes. She begins to feel you. She begins to notice you. She begins to emotionally track your presence, even when you're not physically there. And that feeling, subtle, deep, undeniable, is what most men never experience because they are too afraid to stop reacting. So, if you're honest with yourself, you know this is where you've been failing. You've been reactive, available, and predictable. You've been too eager to fill the spaces, and that eagerness has made you ordinary. But once you embrace silence, once you learn to move with control, presence, and restraint, you begin to understand why women feel so much more deeply when a man isn't constantly chasing or explaining himself. It's not magic, it's not manipulation, it's self-mastery. And mastering it doesn't just change the way women feel, it changes the way you feel about yourself. You gain control, confidence, and presence. And in that energy, women sense something rare, something they can't articulate, something they feel. That's the power of silence. And that's why it works when everything else fails. Let's be honest. Most men are walking around completely unaware of what's actually happening in their interactions with women. You think you're doing everything right, texting, calling, showing attention, explaining yourself. But here's the brutal truth. Most of what you're doing is making you forgettable. Women don't struggle to notice you because you're not interesting. They struggle to feel anything about you because you've trained yourself to give everything away too soon. You've diluted your presence. You've erased the mystery. And that, my friend, is the reason most men fail. It's time to wake up. You can't keep reacting to every ping, every notification, every comment. You can't keep proving your worth at every turn. That approach doesn't create connection. It creates fatigue. She feels you, but only in the way she might notice background noise. You're there, but she isn't moved. She isn't tracking your energy. She isn't curious. And the worst part, most men never realize that the very thing they think makes them attractive. The constant attention, the eagerness, the explanations is the thing that actually pushes her away emotionally. Here's the hard criticism. You've been taught to be too available, too reactive, and too predictable, and it's killing your chances of creating real depth. You're afraid of silence because you equate it with rejection. You're terrified of holding back because you think absence means loss. But here's the paradox. Absence, when used wisely, creates presence. Silence, when practiced deliberately, makes you unforgettable. You're teaching her nothing about your boundaries, your control, or your life outside her attention. If you are always chasing, you're not a man of substance. You're a man of reaction. And women feel that immediately. Let me break this down. Women are not impressed by constant attention. They are moved by intentional presence. They feel tension, they feel curiosity, and they feel respect when a man doesn't overextend himself. That feeling comes from silence, from self-possession, from knowing your worth without constantly proving it. Yet, so many men ignore this, thinking that the louder they are, the more noticed they'll be. Wrong. That's not attraction. That's predictability. And predictability is invisible. Here's the wake-up call. If you want her to feel the depth of you, you need to stop giving away everything too soon. Stop explaining yourself. Stop overexting. Stop chasing approval. Stop reacting to every emotional stimulus. Most men are emotionally exhausted from their own behaviour. They are drained from trying too hard, seeking validation in the wrong ways. And women feel that. They don't feel desire for a man who constantly seeks their attention. They feel curiosity for a man who controls his own attention. being memorable isn't about being distant or cold. It's about being self-possessed and intentional. It's about understanding that your energy, your attention, and your life are valuable. When you operate from that perspective, silence becomes your tool, not a weakness. You're no longer trying to impress, convince, or prove. You're simply existing with purpose. And that alone creates tension, fascination, and emotional tracking in ways that words cannot replicate. Men, here's the advice you need to internalize. Wake up and start mastering yourself before you try to master connection. Most of you have been chasing the wrong things. You've been distracted by reactions instead of cultivating presence. You've been confused by attention instead of building respect. It's time to realize that women respond to energy, to tension, and to emotional depth, not texts, explanations, or validation seeking. Silence, presence, and self-mastery are the paths to making a woman feel you deeply. The truth is uncomfortable, but necessary. If you keep chasing, explaining, and reacting, you'll keep being forgettable. If you keep giving your energy away to fill gaps that don't need filling, you'll keep creating ordinary connections. And the woman you want to feel deeply won't. You must pause, breathe, and learn to value your own presence. Learn to create moments of absence that speak louder than words. Learn to make your energy felt without needing constant interaction. That's when she starts to feel you. That's when attraction becomes emotional. That's when connection deepens. So, stop running after her attention like it's currency. Stop reacting to every message or every emotional cue. Stop being predictable and disposable. Wake up, take control of your energy, and embrace the power of silence. When you do this, she will feel you in ways most men will never experience. And that feeling is unforgettable. That feeling is depth. That feeling is what separates men who leave a mark from men who leave nothing but noise. Let's be brutally honest for a moment. Most men are failing in ways they don't even realize. You think showing up, talking constantly, texting at every opportunity, or explaining yourself endlessly is the way to win a woman's heart. But here's the controversial truth. Most men lose women not because they aren't attractive, not because they aren't interesting, but because they talk too much, chase too hard, and reveal too much too soon. That's it. No gimmicks, no tricks, just a simple, uncomfortable reality. This is the part most men hate hearing, but it's necessary. If you keep reacting to every message, every attention cue, every mood, you are teaching her that you have no boundaries, no control over your own energy, and no life outside her validation. And when a man behaves this way, women don't feel depth. They feel obligation. They feel comfort. And comfort kills desire. Desire, attraction, and emotional connection don't grow from comfort. They grow from presence, tension, and restraint. The longer you stay silent in the right way, the deeper she begins to feel you. And yet, most men will never even attempt it because they are too afraid of being uncomfortable themselves. Here's the second hard truth. Silence is an absence. It's not ignoring. It's not manipulation. It's a signal of self-mastery. It's confidence, presence, and independence wrapped into one invisible force. And it's the kind of force women notice, even if they don't consciously realize it. The more predictable, eager, and reactive you are, the less she feels your presence. The less you chase, the more she feels tension, curiosity, and emotional pull. This is why almost every man who thinks he's doing everything right is failing, and why the men who understand restraint and silence stand out effortlessly. Now, I know some of you will argue, but isn't ignoring her dangerous? Won't she lose interest? That's exactly the mindset that keeps men average. You confuse absence with indifference, when in reality, absence creates presence. It forces her to notice your value without you saying a word. It allows her mind to track your energy, imagine your priorities, and feel your presence in ways text messages and explanations never could. This is emotional depth, and it's rare because most men are too busy reacting to create it. Here's the controversial statement I promised. Most men will never make a woman feel deeply because they are addicted to attention, addicted to validation, and too afraid of silence. That's harsh, I know, but it's true. You can't build depth while constantly giving everything away. You can't create emotional connection while chasing reactions. You can't be unforgettable while being predictable. Women feel men. They feel energy, tension, presence, not explanations, not excuses, not constant attention. And that's why restraint is more powerful than words ever will be. But here's the thing. I'm not saying this to discourage you. I'm saying this to wake you up, to challenge you to see where you've been failing, and to show you a path forward. The power of silence, of presence, and of restraint is not a secret. It's not manipulation. It's simply the art of being a man who values himself enough to create emotional impact without overextending his energy. And when you learn this, you don't just create connection, you create respect, intrigue, and desire that can't be replicated by anyone else. I want you to take a moment and reflect. Think about your own behavior. Are you constantly reacting? Are you chasing? Are you giving away too much too soon? Or are you learning to hold your ground? Create space and let your energy speak for itself? This is where most men are failing. And this is where you can make a real difference. Not just in how women feel about you, but in how you feel about yourself. And here's the part I want you to engage with. Comment below on your experiences. Tell me if you've noticed the difference when you pause, when you hold back, when you stop reacting. Tell me what worked, what felt strange, what challenged you. I will read your comments personally, and I'll reach out to connect with those who are ready to take this seriously. I want to hear your journey because this isn't just theory. It's real life, it's practice, and it works when you commit. So here's my challenge to you. Stop chasing. Stop explaining. Stop reacting. Embrace silence, presence, and self-mastery. Women will feel it. People around you will notice it. And most importantly, you will begin to feel it within yourself. This is controversial because it goes against everything you've been taught, but it works. The longer you resist the urge to fill every space with words and actions, the deeper a woman and the world begins to feel the real you. Remember, this is not manipulation. This is not games. This is truth, presence, and emotional depth. And if you're willing to take it seriously, to embrace discomfort, and to practice restraint, you'll start creating connections most men can only dream about. Comment below, share your story. Let's start this journey together. The men who are awake, present, and disciplined are rare, and that's why they leave a mark. Be that man.